Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Professor Govala, and today I have a really good friend of mine. I met him a bunch of years back now, maybe like 8 years ago. He's a software engineer and entrepreneur, and his name is Paul Ukebu. And Paul, go ahead. Could you introduce yourself for us, please?
Hello, everyone. My name is Paul, and I am a software engineer with expertise in DevOps, cloud computing, and automation. Um, my journey in tech started as a software engineer. I worked for the State Department and then transitioned to Liberty Mutual. And in Liberty Mutual, after 6 months to a year, I made that transition from software engineering to infrastructure engineering under the DevOps platform. So I got to work on cloud computing of cloud companies with like AWS and Azure. And yeah, I say like I became passionate about infrastructure. I was curious about it. I want to know more about this other field of software engineering, the pipeline, containerization, monitoring. I wanted to know it all. And a few meetings with some infrastructure engineer in my team gave me some passion to check out that area, that field. So yeah, now I am an infrastructure engineer.
Wow, that's really cool. Yeah, I actually never knew that about you. That's really interesting. But let's start from the beginning.
Yeah.
In terms of your educational career, can
Mhm.
you tell the audience why you went the path of a software engineer and the type of like the benefits or the disadvantages that you felt throughout your education?
Yeah, I can like to start. So, as you know, I started in the Navy. I was engineer in the Navy, and while I was there, I started my online classes. And my first class was had a Python class in it, and in that Python class, I got to build a game, and that was like the final build a game, my final project, and I really liked it. The process from writing my first Hello World and writing my and telling and setting up my own algorithm and writing input. Yeah, it was just an amazing feeling. Prior to that, I always thought that in order to build an app, build a program, I have to be like this super nerd that like Tony Stark. Tony Stark's my favorite character from Marvel, and I thought I had to be like him and I had to be super smart. Like I am not that smart, okay? But yeah, and it's like then taking that class, like, oh wait, all I need is a laptop. I need to just download Python and get an IDE, which Visual Studio Code was one that I used. Um, Actually, sorry, I used PyCharm from my school, PyCharm, and then I started writing code, and then it was like, oh, this is actually really nice. This is something I really like. So I
Mhm.
made that switch. I signed up for school as a mechanical engineer, and I made that switch to software engineering. And I stuck with it. So after I did one semester, I dropped out for a little bit to join a coding boot camp. So I went to a coding boot camp, and in that coding boot camp, which is Coding Dojo here in Chicago, that coding boot camp, I got to learn more. I wanted to know more about the career. I want to dive into projects and I want to know it all. And after my research, I found out that boot camps are amazing and I could learn a lot. So in 4 months, I got to learn. I started with learn the fundamentals of programming. So I started with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, um, and once I was done with that, for the first month, the second month it was Python and Django. So Python, the programming language, and I learned how to build applications with Django. And for our final project, we would have to deploy our exams. Would have to make a crude application. Um, and once we made a crude application to get like a black belt, so there's different levels, right? There's a
Wow.
white belt
Yeah.
just building out the application, the crude application, and then there's like a red belt. If you add like certain functions, then you get like a red belt. It's coding dojo, so they kept that samurai theme, learning character, yeah. And then for a black belt, you have to build a whole crude application, add the cool functions that they want to see, and then deploy it to a cloud service. And that was AWS. So if you did that, you had a black belt for that one framework, Python Django. So I got that. and then the next month it was MERN stack. So I learned the MERN stack, which is MongoDB, Express, React, um, and
Wow.
Node.js. Uh, and I built an application with that. And the same thing too for our final exam. You build a project. If you're able to deploy it to a cloud service, then you get a black belt. I don't think I got a black belt for that one. I think after the first one, it was like, okay, I'm done. And then the
Yeah.
last one, yeah, the last one was C Sharp, C Sharp and the .NET frameworks, and I got to build an application with that. So I learned three frameworks
Wow.
in 4 months,
Wow.
and it was really good. I got to collaborate with other curious-minded, fun engineers, and we got to collaborate and build some cool applications, and also solve
Hmm.
some algos because the coding bootcamp had this thing where every morning all the students would come together and solve an algorithm. So we were always
Wow.
training our mind, to get ready for interviews. So it
Hmm.
was a great coding bootcamp. After that, I went back to school, Navy active, and a year later, I got an internship with Liberty Mutual. Um,
Okay.
and once I got my internship at Liberty Mutual, while I was in it, it was fun. I got to work in a team that was working with Java. So now I'm learning
Mhm.
a whole new other programming language that's different from the things that I learned and I've been
Learned,
working
yeah.
with. So I got introduced to Java, a new programming language for me, which was actually it's an old programming language, but to me it was a new programming language. And I got
Hmm.
to modernize legacy applications. So I was working on modernizing legacy applications with Java Spring Boot framework. And after that, during that internship too, I also signed up for um, a coding hackathon within the company. So Liberty Mutual, which is the company I work for, they had a coding hackathon. And that coding hackathon, we got first place. We built an awesome application. We got first place, and I was happy. I remember that I had to go to the base because I normally was doing internship during the daytime, and I would work for the
Hmm.
Navy at night. So I had to go to the base. I didn't. As soon as I got in my car and I was driving, they were announcing the winners, and I'm
Hmm.
here driving, and I hear, "Oh, this team got first place." I'm like, what? Like, okay, focus on the road.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, this is awesome. I had one of my teammates taking off his shirt and swinging it around. I think he forgot that they were still announcing all of us. But it
Wow.
was fun. I got to work with an amazing team and learn, and I worked on amazing projects. And even with that, the coding hackathon, the application we built was using Swift. So we used Swift, and I got introduced to Lambda functions, the AWS. So I just kept learning something new, and
Hmm.
so I'll bring it up later. But that's the one thing I would say if you want to go into this field, you have to be curious, you have to be willing to learn, open-minded.
Yeah.
If you work for a big company, there's going to be different teams, and you're allowed to like bounce around. So yeah, after that internship, I got an offer, but the offer would start the following year. So I had about 6 to 8 months of free time, and I signed up and I applied to the State Department where I was a data engineer for the State Department. And in there, I got to work with, if I remember, React. And so I was front end engineer, data engineer. So I was building an application, helping them with the front end. And once in a while, the database principal database engineer would want me to like get some information from the database for certain things, right? And it was an Oracle database, and I got to work with MySQL, learn MySQL syntax. So yeah, it was pretty fun, pretty cool. And after that, started my journey at Liberty Mutual as a software engineer at Liberty Mutual. And in, when I transitioned as a full-time employee in Liberty Mutual, my first team was a different framework. It was Angular. So there's React framework and there's Angular framework. There's two big, awesome frameworks, front end frameworks or app frameworks used to build applications, right? Amazing
Okay.
frameworks.
Hmm.
Angular is more structured compared to React, so it was fun working with Angular. And I got introduced to this other section of JavaScript, which is TypeScript, which is more of a statically typed language, or making JavaScript feel more statically typed. And JavaScript is
Hmm.
a dynamic language, and with TypeScript, it feels more statically typed language. And yeah, with the team, Angular, um, I got to work Angular. We deployed AWS. We were building a new application. We were using a third-party vendor to do some things, and we decided to build it in-house. And that was my first time working in corporate, and I had the chance to work with a team starting from scratch, where we built an application for the company starting from scratch. So I got to experience the whole get the whole full experience of like planning out the project, working as a Scrum team, an Agile team. So Agile methodology, I got to practice that, and while I was in there too, I got my Scrum Master certificate. Um,
Hmm.
so I got that, and I got the experience of planning a project and actually implementing the project, talking or communicating with our I can't remember the higher ups. Um,
Yeah.
talking with the higher ups,
No,
and yeah,
no,
that's the
yeah,
word.
that's
Yeah.
no, that's awesome. Yeah, yeah. I want to dive into a couple of things though that
Okay.
you mentioned.
Yeah.
And from here, because we're gonna dive into different parts of your career.
Hmm.
So then you talk about those segments kind of thing. But I wanted to start from the beginning.
All right.
You
Go ahead.
mentioned the coding boot camp. Can you
Hmm.
mention the name of the coding boot camp?
It's Coding Dojo.
Coding Dojo. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you also have your degree from University of Southern New Hampshire, right?
Southern New Hampshire, correct.
All right. So I think some of the viewers, I think some of the controversial thing that's going on right now is, do I go to a coding boot camp and learn computer science there, software engineering there, or do I go the traditional route and go to the university? So it looks
Hmm.
like you've done both,
Yeah.
and it looks like you've had fun in the coding boot camp, and maybe you had fun in the university as well.
Hmm.
But can you expand on that in terms of the pros and cons of doing something like a boot camp where, like you said, you get these different belts and establishments based on your accomplishments versus the traditional route being the university or college?
Yeah. Yeah. Both of them great. They have its benefits, and the pros and cons. Um, Going to a coding boot camp, obviously you learn a lot in a short time, right? If you want to go to a coding boot camp compared to university, you have to be ready to dedicate time. And that's why I learned it. University, you set your times. I was online, so you basically just have to submit your work by the end of the week, right? And
Mhm.
you can like choose what time you want to get your work done, as long as you submit those projects when it's due. Um, Whereas coding bootcamp, I went to class at 7 a.m. because that's I think 7 8 a.m. It was 4 years ago that I went. So 7 a.m. that I'll get to class and I'll start my algorithms with my teammates, and then we'll start our classes, and then we'll have time to like work on projects because we are having 4 weeks to learn each framework. So they're giving you 4 weeks, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I was in there and I was diving into projects and working with my team. And I had to finish that in like 4 weeks for one framework. Whereas normally people today, when they want to go the self-taught route, they'll normally focus on like one framework, and it will take them probably about 3 6 months because of their time, right? So it's like if you want to go to a coding boot camp, I don't know how it is now. I know Coding Dojo when I went there then. I'm hoping they still kept the same like schedule and mentality, but you would have to dedicate time. So 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I was coding with my teammates, and then for school it was like, okay, I'm setting my own time. I have to just get projects done and completed by Friday, Sunday. But there,
Mhm.
I would say, um, I guess is the I didn't get to work on frameworks. So in school it was more of algorithms, all right? Or
Mhm.
I didn't get to learn about working with frameworks and building a full application. I think it just like one or two times where I took some exams and one of my projects to do that. But whereas coding boot camps is like let's build applications, let's build applications, let's build applications. And you're not building
Yeah.
applications by yourself. You're actually assigned, you're building applications with four people. Um,
Hmm.
so I would say it's like the experience might be different for someone who went to in campus. Maybe if I got in campus, I probably would have gotten the same experience as going to a coding boot camp. It's just going to be
Hmm.
longer and more expensive. Um, but yeah, if you have, as I said, back to the point, if you have that passion, curiosity, you want to learn, you love coding, you love solving problems, both routes would be good. Um,
Good. Yeah.
yeah, that'll be
That
good. Just one is just gonna be shorter and more, a lot of
more
time
hands on.
dedicated. Yeah, hands on.
Yeah.
Whereas the other one is, theory, yes, and but a lot of spaced out. You know,
Hmm.
so.
Yeah. I definitely feel that that's um a little bit like, again, depending on what type of time you have. For example,
Hmm.
if you're a listener and you have a wife and a kid and kids, maybe the university route where it's a little bit slower paced, take your time, is a little bit better. Versus like if you have more free time and you're just trying to jump career paths, maybe the boot camp is better. But again, this is just dependent on who you are as a person.
Yep.
Um, yeah, and
And
then yeah, go ahead.
and I know some boot camps now lately. Then back then, I don't think they offered that, but now they have a part-time coding boot camp, but it's a lot
Mm.
longer. I think 6 months to a year. They're not bombarding you with like different frameworks. You're like focused on that one framework. And I know a lot of people who are watching this would say, "Oh man, you learned like four frameworks in 4 months. That's a lot, right?"
Yeah.
But instead, I love to learn, and that's the one
Mhm.
thing you have to come into this field is always constantly growing. And you always have to have that mindset of adapting and wanting to learn. Um,
Yes.
so yeah, the four boot camps. What I got out of that was just understanding of working of building an application. Python, JavaScript, C sharp. They're all different syntax, but they all follow the same principles, right? And the frameworks too. It's like they all have different ways to like launch their frameworks or how to build an application, but it's still the same crude application. You're creating, you're reading. Um, um, well, I can't remember what the U stands for, but you're deleting. Um,
Okay.
yeah, create, read, uh, uh, create,
That's
read, something.
that's all right. That's all
Update,
right. Update.
create, read,
Okay, there you
update,
go.
and delete. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So, so that's they're all for the same thing and the same principles for building applications. You're creating something, you're reading something, you're updating, and you're deleting. And yeah, that's how it
Mhm.
is. Um, so yeah.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I think I definitely envy people who know all these different frameworks because like myself, I love to use Python and being a computer engineer and passionate about machine learning, Python is just very user friendly.
Hmm.
But I do kind of envy the fact that like I'm not the best at things like SQL or JavaScript or there's so many different frameworks out there. React is that it's kind of hard to keep track of everything. But I
Yeah.
know for a fact that since I know the basics and the data algorithms in Python or C++, I can always convert it to whatever is out there.
Hmm.
Um, and then I want to also dive into another important thing that I think would be interesting to talk about is when you were doing your studies, you said you were also in the military.
Yeah.
You were in the Navy, correct?
Correct.
All right. So if you can just dive into your experience of when you joined the Navy, how it was like balancing the Navy and school for the listeners who are maybe in the Navy or in the military who are thinking about going the same path as you.
Um, it's gonna be about you, right? It's what can you handle. Right? You said if you have free time, and depending what path you want to take. I've seen a lot of people in the military go to school. It's just about balancing your time, what time you go to. Well, if you're on a ship and you have to go underway, then that's different. Your access is limited. But if you're like stationed somewhere, and you have access to a computer, it's just gonna be about you balancing your time. No one, prioritizing things, and it's like, oh, in the morning I'll eat. Depending on your shift too, is like if you're working at night, then you probably take a sleep, or when you wake up, you study. Dedicate about 3-4 hours of studying coding or whatever your path you're taking. Um, and vice versa. If you're working at night, if you're working in the morning, then nighttime you sleep, then do some studying. So it's gonna be up to the individual to do that. Mine was I had to go to the base at night, so I would do all of my studying in the morning, which was really
I
good.
see.
Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, I'll do all of my studying. I'll wake up in the morning, I'll study, and I did it like a full-time gig. So while I was in school, I did a full-time gig. When I did my internship, it was like a full-time gig. So I worked the 7 to 3, 4, and then around that 4-ish time, I'll report to the base. So
I see.
yeah, it's gonna be up to the individual to, decide how to do that. But yeah, it's possible. I know it's a lot harder too for people who have responsibilities. I don't have kids. I didn't have a spouse, so it was just myself. So it was. I would say it's a lot easier compared to some folks in the Navy and military that have responsibility. But it's up to them. It's possible to do it. It's an amazing field if you think about consulting engineering field. It's an amazing field. I would say all of your hard work and struggles is definitely worth it in this field. Um, yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I definitely see some of these videos where it's like people the interviewer will go up to the an individual and be like, "How much do you make as a software engineer in
Hmm.
Maryland or in Florida or in San Francisco?" And
Yep.
these salary ranges are really, really good. So I
Yeah.
definitely agree with you. Um, but when you say that it's very fruitful and very lucrative in the
Yeah.
sense of being worth it, going through the kind of the pain to get in the gain,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yep.
All right. So then let's dive more into career strategies. So you said you
Hmm.
worked for Liberal Mutual. And can you talk to us about how you got the full time position, or because you mentioned an internship, or did you have to interview after the internship? Could you just walk us through your path into getting into mutual, mutual, sorry,
Yeah.
Liberal Mutual, and
Liberty Mutual.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and more. Hmm.
I'll say one is having a strong portfolio. Um, while I was in boot camp, one of the great things about a boot camp was getting to work on actual projects and deploying to my GitHub. So everything that I did, every project I worked on, every idea that I came up with, I put it on GitHub. Um, and then after boot camp, while I was in school, I was still building websites. I was building static websites, which is basic HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and then some full web applications for myself. Um, um, and I kept doing that and uploading to my GitHub. I think I have like 50 something projects. And I'll say, don't just be like other people who are like trying to get that green square filled out on GitHub. Actually work on something and learn and understand and show it. If you're working on a framework, don't just be pushing code. Like, go ahead and build something. Think about a problem out there and try to build something, solve that problem. Or you can just copy something that's already been made. I know there are occasions where like, oh, let me try to recreate a social app or just something chat app, and um, yeah, or even when I started, before I even went to a coding bootcamp, I would do this thing where I would see if I can rebuild the front end of Facebook or Instagram, their login page. I'll see if I can rebuild that, learn how to use Flexbox and align items. So I would do things like that all the time. So I'll say, have a strong portfolio, work on applications. Don't just learn something. If you're going to boot camp or you're going to school, don't just learn things and then go home and sleep. Go ahead and apply what you've learned and build something. So have a strong
Hmm.
portfolio, have a personal website. I have a personal website and I've always updated my website. I've built out multiple personal websites with different frameworks. Just
Nice.
because I can. Um, and then I'll say the next one is networking. Go out there, shake hands with people, attend meetups, engage on LinkedIn, create a LinkedIn profile. I know some people are like, yeah, with LinkedIn, but I would say I'll advise to get it. Engage on it. If you see some posts there, go in the comments and either congratulate, add on to the comments, something. Um, um, I went to hackathons outside of Liberty Mutual. So I went to a Facebook hackathon that was hosted here in Chicago. Um, I attended meetups. There's this website called meetups.com, and you can like attend events. I've been to an Angular event. I've been to a Red Hat event. I've been to Afrotech to meet other software engineers. So as you're starting out, network. Um, don't do things by yourself. And I think I've seen a few people do that, where they're trying to go this path solo. You're in a field where everyone is collaborating. When you're working with professionals, even right now, you're pairing up with someone, either a senior or someone in your same level, mid level, or lower, but you're pairing up with someone and you guys are working on a problem and trying to solve that problem. You're not, maybe there will be a few times you do things solo, but that hardly happens, right? This field is heavy on collaboration. Um,
Hmm.
so get into
Yeah.
that mindset. If you're that person who's like, oh, I'm gonna stay in my apartment, it's like that is good. I can understand trying to do that for work, but you're gonna be online in meetings talking with someone. So go out there, shake hands, because referrals is another big thing. If you apply to a company, it's like, okay, your application is put at the bottom compared to someone who's actually referred. So if you know someone who works for like Microsoft, they can hook you up with a recruiter, and that recruiter is like, hey, this person, an amazing engineer, told me that you're also a good engineer. You want to have an interview. That's the one of the big things about networking. And it's still done today. There's lots of amazing events, and one of the big ones I like to go to is Afrotech. So yeah, I would
Yeah.
say another one too would be master the interview process. So learn your algorithms, sign up for a lead code, and take challenge questions. I still go on lead code here and there just to see where I'm at, and take interviews. I might not be interested in work for the company, but it's just a good way to see where I'm at right now. If I'm
Yeah.
able to do things right. So mastering the interview process, watch the YouTube videos of how to, understand mapping and basic things like that, all those structures. Um, I would say always, always stay up to date with industry trends too. Um, Pay attention to technologies that are out there. See what is moving and what is not. AI is now a big thing. With AI comes cloud computing. They need infrastructure. So more and more data centers are being built. So understand those things, um, keep up with what's happening in the industry, the tech industry.
Yeah. No, that's really good information, and I hope the listeners are jotting down these notes. So just to recap, um, making sure your GitHub is up to date and you're
Hmm.
actually posting legitimate projects and things like that on there.
Hmm.
Practicing your frameworks using things like projects or full web applications. Going to these conferences, networking with people, and then making sure you're up to date, learning your algorithms, freshening up your algorithms, and then
Hmm.
staying up with industry trends are very key things. And I do agree with that in terms of when you do these interviews, you never know or expect. You can never expect what they're going to ask you. So
Hmm.
it's better to be prepared for anything, right?
Yeah.
And going into the interview sector of things, now that you are at Liberal Mutual, do you do any type of interviewings?
Yeah, yeah. So I have conducted interviews. I've interviewed candidates for the technical part of the interviews. I've done a lot of it, and
Mhm. If
it's good.
if it's not NDA, would you
Yeah.
mind sharing with the viewers?
So I can't share what questions that they ask,
Hmm.
but I would say it comes down to the part where I say you need to master the interview process. Taking all of this leak code is not, don't just cram these problems. Understand how it works. Um, because a lot of things can be the same algo or same problem. It's just worded different, right? I need to move this from point A to point B. I need you to select through this window or shift through this window and give me this result. They might ask that question in the same way. They might ask that question different ways, or they could put it in a football type of way. They could put it in a soccer type of way, in a
Mm.
baseball type of way. It's all different, but it's like, oh, it's just the same thing. And I've seen a lot of people
Mhm.
focus like, oh man, I didn't see this in Elite Code. I didn't see this problem anywhere. It's like, well, you have seen the problem. You just probably don't know it. It's just worded different, you know? So if you
Yeah.
understand that, then yeah, you'll be more prepared for interviews. And that's what I've seen a lot of computer science students too, or graduates who actually don't know much of algorithm, because as I said, back to what I said earlier, was that a lot of people will go to class or go to a Chromebook camp anywhere, and they'll just learn these things and they don't apply what they've learned. And I've seen a lot of
Mhm.
people mess up, like, oh wow, you have a degree in computer science and you don't know how to this is actually the simplest question and you don't know how to do
Yeah.
this. And yeah, I see them struggle, and that's because they don't put into practice. They don't go home and continue constantly learning. You're investing in yourself, so go there
Mhm.
and keep learning and mastering the interview process, master your algo, understand how they all work. um and in the interview too, I would say this: the interviews, I can't tell you interviews, but I'll say one thing too is definitely enunciate. Talk about
Mhm.
what your problem, because I actually have passed people through. They didn't have to solve everything, so yeah, you're giving. I can say that you're given two questions to solve under a specific time. Um, I've passed them through, like recommended them for hire because they were able to enunciate, they were able to talk about the problems, they were able to write down notes. Yes, they had a few fails here and there, but yes, they 1-2 passes. Okay, I see you working. If you had more time, you definitely would have. I want to have that in my head. Like, if this person had more time, they definitely would have solved this problem, right? So
Mhm.
I want to see your thought process. Talk about your thought process, and also too, I can help you out. I give you hints here and there of oh, okay, tell me, I see you're talking about this, I see you want to do that. Well, have you thought about, maybe if you take this approach, and I do things like that to give them hints and guide them in the right way. And a lot of interview, even when I interview too, my interviewer did the same thing.
Mhm.
I know I struggled for the second equation, and they were like, okay, you're talking, I see what you're doing, okay, right there, what about if you do this? And I'm like, oh, really?
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe if I did that approach, that would have been better. So yeah,
Mhm.
definitely talk about it. Be relaxed. The interviewers there are there to help you out. Um, they're there to guide you. So talk about your process. You know, let them hear you and listen to what they have to say. The
Yeah.
feedbacks too. So I do give feedbacks, and you should also ask them, hey, what feedback? And most of the interviews should give you like, hey, so I saw you struggled here and there. Maybe you should work on this more. Or
Mhm.
I've had people who want to use a different programming language, and it's like, well, try to understand that syntax more before you come to interview. If you want to use that programming language instead,
Mhm.
learn more about the syntax. And also, I don't know about other companies, but the companies that people have hired at Liberty, we have allowed people to use outside resources. So use Stack Overflow or to understand your syntax. Now, I'm not saying go copy the question, but if you are
Yeah.
having problems with the syntax, you know what you want to do. You know what you want to do, but you're having syntax. You don't know how to do that with that programming language. We've allowed that. So I know
Yeah.
companies out there allow that too. So yeah.
No, that's interesting. I know a big one that I heard the other time that which you touched on was that when an interviewer asks you a question,
Hmm.
they really like it when the interviewee
Hmm.
asks more questions to clarify different things.
Yes.
So for example, the interviewer will intentionally ask a question vaguely,
Hmm.
right? And then the interviewee is the person interviewing is supposed to ask clarification questions, and that gets you bonus points.
Yeah.
So I've heard about that. So that's pretty cool. Um, okay, so I just have a couple more questions I really want to ask
Yeah.
you here. One
Perfect.
just being, what is like the coolest thing you've done at Liberal that you think is like kind of revolutionary or novel, or just cool or fun in general, just as you as an engineer. Hmm.
At Liberty Mutual, I have worked on, so it's going to be hard to pick the cool projects I worked on. It's every day, especially since I switched to infrastructure. Every day is just like something new, something different, something that is going to be hard to even find an answer. It's And that is something I've seen too. It's like going out there and communicating with app teams and vendors and like wait, you built this application or this server, you had the server, you guys did this. uh is there any documentation? What is this? Why did you do this update? How does this affect? So you're communicating constantly with vendors and app teams, or you're updating them like, hey, I'm about to make this change. This is the things that I'm about to implement. And as an engineer too, the cool thing is that you get to like make your mistakes. So there are environments out there. There's a dev environment, there's a test environment, there's some have a perf environment, and then you have the prod environment where you actually deploy things. So you have all of these environments. You get to make your mistakes and you get to like fix errors before you finally deploy to prod. So
I
I
see.
have so many cool projects. So I'll say last year there was a new law that was passed by New York Department of Finance or something like that, NYDFS, and
Mm-hmm.
and there were some things that were passed, and we had to make a lot of changes on on thousands of our servers, and our team decided to pick on Ansible. And as I said, that's one of the things. You have to have that open mind and curiosity. You have to have that mindset to want to learn. So our team didn't know this Ansible. It's an automation tool. It's just like Python,
Mm.
but I think it's a lot easier. But we had to learn Ansible, and we had to learn Ansible because we were trying to automate thousands of servers. We're not going to log into each one of these servers to do the work that we want to do. So we use
Mm-hmm.
Ansible for that, and that was amazing. Like diving into a new using a new tool, a new technology with my team. We're all learning. We're applying what we've learned, and
Mm-hmm.
and we were working on this test servers, and we are building out we're writing this automation to fix this problem. And even with that too, while we were using Ansible, we had some access problems. Some servers, security wise, firewall, you can't really make any changes. So we had to switch between Ansible and shell scripting. So now I'm learning how to
Mm-hmm.
shell script, and it's like super cool. And I think that's what's cool about working at Liberty. It's just learning new technologies and
Two
applying what I've
things,
learned.
yeah.
Yeah. So I've worked on so many cool projects, starting from my internship to modernize application with Java, and then the application. As soon as I joined as a software engineer, the team that I worked on, we started applications from the bottom and we built out the application, and we got to see it being launched and being used. And then in
Mm-hmm.
the infrastructure world, just so many automation that I've got to work on, so many tools that I've got to work on. So yeah, I can't really pinpoint just one thing and tell you. It's just
Mm-hmm.
they've all been amazing. And as I said, the cool thing about the project is just working with new technologies, and not just working by myself. I'm working with a team. We're all learning this new thing and applying what we've
Mm-hmm.
learned to build out or solve this problem. You know?
No, yeah, that's awesome, and I do resonate with you when you say working with a team, especially on something new, because sometimes when you work by yourself and you discover something, you're happy, but then there's no one to kind of rejoice with you.
Yes.
But then when you work with like a team and like something like a breakthrough happens,
Mhm.
it's awesome that everyone's happy, and we're like, oh my god, we spent so many nights on this, and now
Yeah.
we got it, and it's just a lot more satisfying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I,
um
Let's say two
yeah.
heads are better than one too. Just a lot faster compared to you solving it by yourself. It's a lot faster when two heads are
Mhm.
like bouncing ideas off of each other. Someone's saying, "Oh wait, no,
Mhm.
let's not do that," or it's like, "Why is this breaking?" It's like maybe because you did this. Or I've had people point out, "Hey, Paul, I see what your problem is. I was like trying to solve it. We were both trying to figure it out, but his eyes are like fresh, and he came in like, oh." You forgot to add a semicolon there, bro. you know?
Yeah, yeah, the fresh eyes definitely helps when
Yep.
yeah, in industry when whenever I'm struggling with code, like you said, I feel like every software engineer has gone through this, where you just show a new pair of eyes and they're like, yeah, you just forgot this, and you're like, oh my
Yeah.
god, you know. Um, okay, so I want to talk about your journey as a remote employee or
Hmm.
infrastructure engineer,
Yeah.
just in terms of like your passion for traveling, and the um the ability that this job gives you kind of to have that access to travel. If you just want to
Mhm.
elaborate on that for the viewers so they can kind of live through your experiences.
So how about now? I mean, some people might get a remote opportunity. I know now every company is switching hybrid, even my company. But I came in during the COVID time, so I came in remote employee. Um, and the company has been great. Liberty Mutual is an amazing company. Great work-life balance. Shout out Liberty. Great work-life balance, and it's such a huge company that I've got to work with a lot of food techs, right? With the remote life too, is there's the I have been able to work anywhere in the US. There's no like, hey, you can't travel outside of the state that you put as your home state. Chicago is my home base. I live in Chicago, but I have worked from Dallas. I've worked from the headquarters in Boston. I've been to the office out there a few times. New Hampshire too. They have an office out there, and this is a big major hub. They have a major hub too in Seattle. Um, and even outside of the country too. The company's so big that they set up their security and their infrastructure so well that you can work remotely from these places. Um, so yeah, I have gotten a chance to work from. When I started a company, I was a nomad traveling a lot. Now I've kind of relaxed a little bit, but I did work from Europe. I worked from South America. I worked from Asia. Asia was when I started. I worked from Asia in Thailand, um, and it was amazing. As I said, the company has great work-life balance, so I got to explore at the same time, come back home and get my work done. Um, um, yeah, it's been really good. I know a lot of people won't have that. I've seen a lot of friends who work remotely, but they just can't travel outside of the U.S. Um, but they can
Mhm.
travel within the U.S. My company has given me a chance to travel outside the U.S. There are teams in Ireland, Belfast, Atlanta, and eight. So, yeah.
Yes.
But some people might be well. Yes, you have the remote opportunity, but you don't have the opportunity to like work outside the country. But it's been good so
No.
far for me. Yeah. Um,
No, yeah, that's awesome. I think that a company that's allowing people to kind of, have the option of working on base or hybrid or remote is a cool thing, especially in modern day society where we found out through COVID that you don't necessarily need to be in the office to get your work done.
mhm,
So I think that that is a good thing.
mhm.
Um, yeah, so that's really cool. And just in terms of general things here, and to kind of trying to wrap everything up. Um, any words of wisdom for any software engineers, entrepreneurs like yourself?
Uh, let's see. I would say It's, I think I've said it a lot of times, and I'll say it again, especially for if you come into a software engineering path. Um, just be curious, be open-minded, um, be interested about learning all of these new technologies, stay up to date with the industry. You have to have that excitement. If you don't, I don't really think it's the path for you. I have seen people who want to come in. It's a great career. Um, Job security has been a little bit I don't know, shaky lately with layoffs and things like that, but it's still good. Having that skill is still good. Is you can definitely find a job, especially if you go in the government sector. As someone who worked as a government contractor, um, it's yeah, definitely have that mindset of wanting to learn. Um, Especially technology. Be excited about technologies. Be excited about algorithms. Look into the field before you join in. I would say watch some YouTube videos to understand what type of day in the life. I watched a lot of day in the life on YouTube um, for a while before I just chased a career here. Um, so yeah, I would say definitely learn curiously, open-minded, have that collaborative spirit too. You said you would be working with a team. Um, if you're starting this journey, go ahead and find a friend, find a mentor, someone in the field or someone who's starting the journey with you. Both of you, work on a project and learn from each other. Um, Those are people who I think make better engineers, people who work with other people and view things. Even if you start a startup, a VC would invest in you. Well, it's hard for a VC to invest in you if you don't have a team. Mark Zuckerberg had a team. He didn't build Facebook by himself. Every social media app all built by people with a team. So learn how to work with a team. Um, yeah,
Yeah, that's really cool. I always find it fascinating how all my guests that I have on here have kind of different words of wisdom, and I think yours is very interesting. Being curious. I
yeah,
think that a lot of people, like a very important scientist that I look up to, said that babies and children ask very very important and amazing questions. And I feel like the more you get older, the more you kind of encapsulate yourself into a certain lifestyle where you stop asking questions and stop being curious.
yeah,
For example, a baby or a child can be like, "Hey, why is the sky blue?" And adults around could just diss it and say, "Oh,
yeah.
it's just blue," you know.
It's just blue.
But
Yeah,
that's a very very important question. You know, we need to
yes,
dive in and find out why is the sky blue and why do we perceive these things.
yes.
But yeah, I do like that word of wisdom. Be
I would
curious. Hmm.
I would say also one thing is to be comfortable with failure as an
Hmm.
engineer. A lot of I have seen, I probably have experienced that too, is where I'm trying to make things perfect and like you don't have to go ahead and fail. Debugging sucks, yes, but it's there for you to go ahead and fail, make your mistakes and learn from your mistakes, and then teach someone what you've learned. Write in a
Hmm.
wiki, maybe a note, a step, something. And pass on that knowledge of what you've learned from your mistakes. And that's
Hmm.
what I love about field. It's not like, you know, hey, you have to make this perfect. If not, you're losing a life. So you have this environment set up. You have all of this things set up for you to like fail. Go ahead and fail. It's okay to fail. It's okay to get something wrong. Just once you do that, step away from your computer, come back with fresh eyes and find out why you failed. And once you understand that and you fix the problem, then you pass on that knowledge. You can go on Stack Overflow and put it on comment because it's open. There's someone out there. There's a reason why
Yeah.
Stack Overflow is famous because someone out there has already failed. So, and they're
Hmm.
looking for an answer. So you go out there, you see solutions that people have found, or you can contribute to that too. You can, okay, this is
Hmm.
how I solved this problem
Yeah.
that you're facing too, because I faced that. So yeah, be comfortable with failure and just pass on that knowledge, contribute back to society, um, contribute to open source, contribute, yeah. And
Hmm.
and I'll say lastly to advice, as I said it earlier, I'll say it again, is network.
Network. Yeah.
Especially in today's day and age, um, layoffs happening, all of that, very competitive. Go ahead and network, get those referrals, shake hands with engineers, build a team too. You can't work on a team or app if you're not going out there to shake hands with other engineers like you. So go out there, step out, go to meetups, go to events, and have conversation. We don't bite. Engineers don't bite. You find out that probably one of the probably the coolest people to meet, because they want to meet people and they want to like pass on like the skill. Like, oh wow, yeah, yeah, I actually did this
Hmm.
cool projects. I can show you how I did that, and yeah, we love to teach.
Yeah.
I love to teach. I love to
Mhm.
meet people, and I love to learn too. So yeah,
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's really good. And I just want to say thank you for coming on the being my guest today, Paul. Did you have any social media or anything that you want people to follow, or are you?
yeah, it's the same on all of them. I'm hoping you put it like somewhere at the bottom of the YouTube page, but it's Paulie the Nomad for all of my social media. So on my YouTube,
Okay.
Paulie the Nomad. My Instagram is Paulie the Nomad. So follow me at Paulie PAULIETHE Nomad.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on the air.
thanks for having
And
me.
yep. And thank you everyone for listening. Please share, subscribe to my channel. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and comment down below if you have any questions.
Yeah, yeah.